I want you to close your eyes for just a moment. Take a deep breath and try to remember a very specific scent from your childhood. Perhaps it is the metallic smell of water spraying from a green garden hose on a hot summer afternoon. Or maybe it is the rich, smoky aroma of bacon grease sizzling in a heavy cast iron skillet. Welcome back to the 1980s in America. Today, we are taking a slow, comforting walk down memory lane to look at 20 frugal habits from that era. Back then, these little acts of saving and making do did not feel like a struggle. They felt like a way of life, a set of daily rituals that wove our families tightly together and made us feel truly wealthy in the ways that mattered most. Stay with me until the very end, because our final memory involves 2 fingers, a cassette deck, and the pure magic of catching lightning in a bottle straight from the radio. Before we dive into these precious memories, let us take a moment to remember how time felt back then. The rhythm of life in 1980s America was remarkably different. Time moved at a slower, more deliberate pace. We did not have screens in our pockets demanding our constant attention, nor did we expect packages to arrive at our doorsteps overnight. Waiting was simply a natural part of living, and it gave everything we acquired a deep sense of value. There is a modern myth that life without constant digital connection was somehow poor or empty. But you and I know the truth. Our lives were immensely rich in sincerity, in patience, and in face-to-face human connection. When families gathered around the Formica kitchen table to stretch $1 or fix something that was broken, they were doing more than just surviving. They were building character, teaching resilience to their children, and finding deep satisfaction in a hard day of honest work. Now, let us unwrap those beautiful memories together. Let us begin our journey with a familiar sight sitting right there on the back of the kitchen stove. Can you picture that dented metal coffee tin? Perhaps it was a Folgers or a Maxwell House can, stripped of its paper label. Inside was something more valuable than gold to a home cook, the leftover bacon grease. Every time breakfast was cooked, the leftover drippings were carefully, almost religiously, poured into that tin. You can almost hear the soft sizzle as the hot liquid hit the hardened white surface inside. The smell was incredible, a rich, smoky aroma that promised good meals to come. We did not buy expensive cooking oils or fancy sprays from the supermarket. That saved bacon grease was the secret ingredient that made our cast iron skillets sing. It was stirred into pots of fresh green beans. It gave a perfect, crisp crust to the skillet cornbread, and it fried the Sunday morning eggs to absolute perfection. This simple act of saving every drop taught us profound respect for our food. Nothing was squandered. It was a culinary ritual passed down from our mothers and grandmothers, proving that the best flavors came not from a gourmet catalog, but from cleverness and care in our very own kitchens. And speaking of the kitchen, do you remember the quiet sanctuary of Sunday mornings? The heavy Sunday newspaper would land on the front porch with a satisfying thud. Bringing it inside, your hands would get slightly darkened by the fresh printer ink. Then began the sacred ritual of clipping coupons. Mother would spread the glossy inserts across the table, armed with a pair of sharp metal scissors. You could hear the constant snipping sound, separating the 10 cents off a box of cereal from the 25 cents off a bottle of dish soap. These tiny slips of paper were carefully organized into an accordion file or a special envelope in her purse. Going to the grocery store, whether it was the Piggly Wiggly, Kroger, or Safeway, was a strategic mission. The triumph of the day was standing at the checkout register, watching the cashier manually punch in the discounts. Seeing the final total drop by $3 or $4 felt like a massive victory. We felt incredibly proud of those savings. It was a tangible reward for patience and planning, a quiet way to contribute to the family budget that required nothing but time and a sharp pair of scissors. Let us step into the hallway closet and talk about the clothes we wore with such pride. In the 1980s, buying a brand new wardrobe for every season was unheard of for most ordinary American families. Instead, we relied heavily on hand-me-downs. You knew exactly which older sibling or cousin previously wore the corduroy jacket you were currently breaking in. And when the knees of our favorite denim jeans inevitably gave out from playing outside, they were not thrown into the trash. Mother would pull out her heavy iron and a package of stiff, oval-shaped iron-on patches. The smell of hot steam and scorching cotton would fill the room as she pressed her body weight down onto the ironing board. Walking into school with blue jeans featuring dark navy or even plaid patches on the knees was completely normal. It meant your clothes were well loved and lived in. We understood that fabrics had lifespans, and we respected them enough to mend them. There was a unique warmth in wearing a sweater that still carried the faint, comforting scent of your older brother or sister. It wrapped us in a physical sense of belonging to our family tree. Now, let us remember a very specific kind of currency that had nothing to do with paper money. I'm talking about trading stamps, like the famous S&H green stamps. Every time our parents bought groceries or filled up the station wagon with gasoline, the cashier would tear off a strip of these perforated little stamps. Bringing them home was an event. We would sit at the table with the thick paper booklets, our tongues turning dry and tasting heavily of sour glue as we licked and pasted each stamp into its designated square. It was a lesson in extreme patience. It could take months, sometimes a full year, to fill enough books to flip through the magical redemption catalog. The glossy pages offered everything from new toasters and fondue sets to folding lawn chairs. When the day finally came to drive to the redemption center and trade our hard-earned books for a brand-new percolator or a set of dinner plates, the excitement was absolutely electric. It taught us that small, consistent efforts eventually added up to a wonderful reward. We were willing to wait for the things we wanted, making the final prize feel incredibly special. Let us return to the kitchen table, where the magic of stretching a single meal was performed weekly. Think back to the classic Sunday roast chicken. Buying a whole chicken was a significant purchase, and our mothers possessed the culinary wizardry to make that one bird last for 3 entirely different dinners. On Sunday, it was served hot with mashed potatoes and gravy. The aroma of roasted poultry and rosemary would drift through the entire house, gathering everyone together. But the journey of that chicken was far from over. On Monday, the leftover meat was carefully picked from the bones, mixed with mayonnaise and celery, and served as chicken salad sandwiches on soft white bread. Finally, on Tuesday, the bare carcass was tossed into a large pot of boiling water with carrots and onions, to create a rich, golden broth for soup. Witnessing this transformation taught us the true value of resources. We never looked at leftovers with disappointment. Instead, we marveled at the ingenuity of our parents, who could turn one modest grocery purchase into a multi-day feast. It made us feel secure, knowing that no matter what, Mother could always make something out of almost nothing. While we are talking about resourcefulness in the kitchen, we must talk about what happened after the food was put away. Today, it is so easy to toss plastic bags and foil into the garbage without a second thought. But in the 1980s, those items were treated with the utmost respect. If you walked into our kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon, you would likely see washed plastic sandwich bags turned inside out and drying over the handles of wooden spoons next to the sink. The aluminum foil that covered the meatloaf was never crumpled up and discarded. Instead, it was carefully smoothed out by hand. You could hear the delicate crinkling sound as it was flattened, wiped clean with a damp sponge, and neatly folded to be used again. These materials cost hard-earned money, and throwing them away after a single use felt completely irresponsible. Reusing them was just common sense. We learned to handle our possessions delicately, understanding that convenience did not equal disposability. That simple act of washing a plastic bag taught us a profound lesson in mindfulness and conservation that many have forgotten today. Moving into the living room, there is a phrase that every child of the 1980s heard echoing down the hallway. It usually sounded something like, "Do we own the electric company?" This, of course, was the universal fatherly response to leaving a light switch on in an empty room. The satisfying click of the plastic switch turning off became a subconscious habit for all of us. Walking through the house meant navigating the shadows of the hallway to reach the single, brightly lit room where the whole family was gathered. We did not have every room ablaze with electricity. Instead, there was a warm, focused glow radiating from a single lamp beside the television set or above the reading chair. This rule was about saving money on the utility bill, absolutely, but it inadvertently created a beautiful sense of intimacy. It naturally herded the family into the same space. We sat together in the glow of the television set, watching the evening news or a sitcom, simply because that was where the light was. Saving electricity ended up fostering our family closeness. Let us step out into the garage for a moment. Close your eyes and breathe in the distinct mechanical smell of motor oil and WD-40. This was the sanctuary of repair. In our era, when an appliance started making a funny noise or a toy broke, the very last resort was throwing it in the trash can. Our fathers and grandfathers would carry the offending item to the heavy metal workbench. Out came the heavy steel toolbox, the thick silver roll of duct tape, and the tube of super glue. We would stand nearby, holding the flashlight steady, watching calloused hands turn screwdrivers and tighten bolts. There was an unspoken refusal to let a machine defeat them. The sheer satisfaction of hearing the lawnmower engine roar back to life, or watching the toaster pop up bread once again, was a victory shared by the whole house. We learned that things were worth saving. We learned that brokenness was not a permanent state, but simply a problem waiting to be solved. This frugal habit instilled in us a deep sense of self-reliance and the wonderful confidence that we could fix our own problems with a little elbow grease. Just beyond the garage was another place of hard work and massive reward, the backyard vegetable garden. During the long, hot summers, our knees were stained with green grass and dark, damp earth. We knew the unique scent of fuzzy tomato vines and the rough texture of corn husks. The garden was a family enterprise, but the real wealth was found in the late summer ritual of canning. The kitchen would turn into a sauna. Windows steamed up from the massive boiling water bath. Mother would carefully fill heavy glass mason jars with diced tomatoes, pickled cucumbers, and sweet jams. You would listen closely for that sharp, metallic popping sound as the lids sealed tight as they cooled on the counter. Carrying those jars down to the cool, dark cellar was like storing away jewels. The shelves lined with bright red tomatoes, vibrant green beans, and golden peaches represented ultimate security. When the snow fell thick in January, opening a jar of summer tomatoes for a stew brought a burst of sunshine into the kitchen. It was the purest form of frugal wealth, grown with our own hands and preserved with love. Let us shift our memories to the weekends and the ultimate treat of the 1980s, the trip to the local video rental store. Long before streaming services gave us endless instantaneous options, watching a movie at home was a highly anticipated event. You would push open the heavy glass doors of the rental shop and instantly smell that distinct combination of industrial carpet and the plastic of VHS cases. Because renting was an expense, you were only allowed to pick one single movie for the entire weekend. This meant wandering the aisles for what felt like hours, reading the back of every box, holding the lightweight display cases in your hands. The decision was agonizing but deeply important. Once home, the heavy black cassette was pushed into the clunky VCR with a mechanical whir and a click. We gathered on the sofa with a bowl of popcorn popped on the stove, not in a microwave. Because we had invested money and time into this one choice, we watched the movie with our full attention. We cherished the entertainment because it was rare, and that made family movie night a truly magical experience. Now, let us wander into the bathroom and recall a frugal habit that borders on the comical, yet we all did it. I am talking about the art of watering down the last few drops of shampoo or dish soap. When the bottle felt suspiciously light, we did not immediately toss it in the garbage. Oh, no. We held it beneath the faucet, poured a little warm water inside, put the cap back on, and gave it a vigorous shake. The result was a thin, sudsy liquid that could absolutely stretch the life of that product for at least another week. It was a small, seemingly insignificant action, but it carried a powerful message. It taught us that empty did not really mean empty until you had fought for the very last drop. We felt a quiet satisfaction in outsmarting the system, in making sure we got the absolute maximum value out of every single penny our parents spent. It was an era where wastefulness was a mild sin, and this watery soap trick was our daily reminder to respect the things we owned, right down to the very bottom of the plastic bottle. Let us take a step out into the backyard on a breezy Tuesday morning. Before the hum of the electric clothes dryer became the soundtrack of every home, we had the simple, beautiful ritual of line drying our laundry. You can probably still hear the rhythmic squeak of the metal clothesline pulley and the sharp snap of the wooden clothespins. Helping Mother carry the heavy woven wicker basket out to the yard was a chore we all shared. We would stand in the sunshine, shaking out wet cotton bedsheets and pinning them tightly against the wind. The visual of white sheets billowing like sails against a blue sky is deeply etched in our minds. But the true reward came later that afternoon. When we unpinned the clothes and folded them into our arms, they were stiff and warm, baked by the sun. Bringing them indoors brought the scent of fresh air and sunshine right into the bedrooms. We saved pennies on the electric bill, yes, but in return we got linens that smelled like pure nature, a luxury that no bottled fabric softener could ever replicate. Speaking of being outside in the yard, let us talk about how we quenched our thirst during those endless summer afternoons. Nobody in the 1980s had even heard of buying water in expensive little plastic bottles. When we were running wild playing tag, riding our heavy steel bicycles, or building forts in the woods, going inside for a drink meant risking being told to stay indoors. So we relied on the faithful green garden hose. You remember the routine? You would turn the squeaky brass spigot, wait a few seconds for the scalding hot water sitting in the sun to pass, and then lean down to drink. It tasted strongly of rubber and cold, metallic minerals, and it was the most refreshing beverage on earth. Water splashing down our chins and soaking the front of our T-shirts was the universal sign of a good day of play. That hose represented absolute freedom. It meant we did not need money or parental supervision to sustain our adventures. We were self-sufficient kids, fueled by tap water and sunshine, utterly content in our simple, neighborhood-bound universe. Let us fast forward to autumn and the crisp, cool air of October. Halloween in the 1980s was rarely about store-bought, expensive polyester costumes. Instead, it was an exercise in intense, frugal creativity. We would spend weeks digging through the garage and the hall closets. A large cardboard box from the appliance store could easily become a robot or a pair of dice. Mother would pull out her heavy sewing machine, the needle humming late into the night, turning old bed sheets into ghostly robes, or taking apart old clothing to fashion a pirate outfit. Sometimes we would use burnt cork to draw thick black mustaches on our faces, or wrap ourselves entirely in aluminum foil to look like spacemen. There was an incredible sense of pride when stepping out into the neighborhood to trick or treat. We did not just wear our costumes. We had built them with our own hands and our parents' ingenuity. The joy of the holiday was not found in how much money was spent, but in the sheer imagination and family effort that went into transforming ordinary household trash into an evening of pure, magical fantasy. Let us slide into the front seat of the family station wagon. The vinyl seats were sticky in the summer and freezing in the winter. We are going for a drive, and we are hunting for the best gas prices. In an era where every cent mattered, pulling into the first gas station you saw was simply out of the question. Our fathers would drive miles out of the way just to find a pump that was 3 cents cheaper per gallon. The physical experience of pumping gas was completely different back then. You remember the heavy metallic smell of the gasoline and the loud, satisfying ding of the bell as the manual numbers rolled over on the pump display. The road trip map was always tucked tightly in the glove box. Saving that 50 cents on a full tank of gas was a point of immense pride for our parents. It was a game of strategy. Sitting in the back seat, breathing in the exhaust fumes and listening to the AM radio, we learned that money was something you protected fiercely. We learned that a little extra effort and a longer drive were entirely worth it if it meant keeping a few more coins in the family wallet. Moving back inside the house, let us talk about the phone on the kitchen wall. It was likely an avocado green or harvest gold rotary dial, or perhaps an early push-button model, anchored to the wall by a ridiculously long tangled curly cord. In the 1980s, making a long-distance phone call was not a casual act. It was a highly orchestrated event. The rates for calling another state were incredibly high, especially during business hours. So we waited for the magic hour, usually Sunday evening, when the telephone company dropped their rates. The whole family would gather in the kitchen. Mother would stand nervously watching the clock on the wall with eagle eyes. When the call connected, you were handed the heavy plastic receiver and told to talk fast. You had exactly 3 minutes to tell your grandparents you loved them before the toll increased. We shouted our news into the receiver, acutely aware of the ticking clock. This strict rationing of time made every single spoken word feel precious. We did not take communication for granted. Hearing a voice from far away was a luxury we paid for by the minute, and we cherished every second of it. Let us stay with the station wagon for a moment and remember the ritual of the family road trip. When it was time to drive to the beach or visit relatives, stopping at a fast food drive-thru to feed a family of 5 was considered a frivolous waste of money. Instead, the night before, the kitchen was a flurry of activity. Mother would pack the heavy red and white plastic igloo cooler. You could smell the sharp mustard and the bologna as she wrapped stacks of sandwiches tightly in wax paper. Sliced apples and bags of generic potato chips were carefully tucked around frozen ice packs. Up front, near the driver's seat, sat the legendary red plaid thermos, filled to the brim with hot black coffee. When we finally pulled over at a concrete rest stop off the interstate, we would sit on the hood of the car or at a wooden picnic table and eat our homemade feast. We did not feel deprived because we did not get a happy meal. Sitting there in the sun, drinking sweet tea out of plastic cups and eating slightly soggy sandwiches, we felt completely cared for. It was a mobile family dinner, deeply rooted in love and practicality. Let us take one more trip out to the garage, to the corner where the heavy wooden shelves stood. If you looked closely, you would see rows upon rows of empty glass jars. We saved every single mayonnaise, pickle, and jelly jar that passed through the kitchen. Once the glass was washed and the sticky paper label scraped off, these jars found a second life. Father would use them to organize the chaos of his workbench. One jar held rusty nails, another held shiny brass screws, and a third contained spare bolts. Sometimes the lids were nailed directly to the underside of a wooden shelf, so the jars hung down, suspended in midair. You just unscrewed the glass jar, grabbed a nail, and screwed it back up. The satisfying high-pitched clinking sound of metal hitting glass is a soundtrack I will never forget. This was the ultimate expression of our frugal era. Everything had a place, and absolutely nothing was wasted. An empty jar was not garbage. It was a storage solution waiting to happen. It was a beautiful, highly organized system built entirely on zero budget. Let us recall the anticipation of the department store layaway counter. Today, credit cards allow instant purchases, but back then, acquiring something expensive meant participating in the slow, agonizing, and wonderful process of layaway. Whether it was a heavy winter coat, a new television, or a shiny bicycle for Christmas, our parents would pick out the item and take it to the back of the store. The clerk would fill out a thick paper slip with handwritten carbon copies. Every Friday on payday, Mother would walk back to that counter and hand over $10 or $15 in cash. We would watch the balance slowly decrease week by week, month by month. The item was safely held in the back room, waiting for us. When the final payment was made and the clerk finally handed over the box, the feeling of triumph was indescribable. We appreciated that bicycle or that coat so much more because we knew the exact weight of the sacrifice it took to bring it home. Layaway taught us the immense, sweet value of delayed gratification, a feeling that modern convenience has almost entirely erased. Finally, we arrive at our last memory, and perhaps the most deeply emotional one of all. Let us go to your childhood bedroom. Sitting on the carpet is a silver plastic boombox. You have a blank cassette tape loaded inside, and your two fingers are hovering nervously over the heavy mechanical play and record buttons. You are listening to the local FM radio station, waiting with bated breath for the DJ to play your absolute favorite song. It required immense patience. You might wait 2 hours listening to commercials and weather reports, but then the opening chords would chime through the static. With a sharp click, you pressed both buttons down simultaneously. You prayed the DJ would not talk over the vocals. The tape hissed quietly as it captured the music straight from the airwaves. You were making a mixtape, curating your own personal soundtrack without spending a dime at the record store. When you played that tape back in your Walkman, hearing the slight radio static and the abrupt cutoffs, it felt like a masterpiece. It was music earned through dedication. You had captured lightning in a bottle, and it felt like the greatest wealth in the world. Looking back at these 20 frugal habits from the 1980s, it becomes remarkably clear. We did not know we were being frugal. We just thought we were living. We miss these simple rituals not because we want to go back to washing plastic bags, but because we desperately miss the way those actions made us feel. We miss the slow pace of time, the deep respect for the things we owned, and most importantly, the undeniable connection we had with our families. Those small acts of saving and making do built our character and tied us together with an unbreakable thread of love and resilience. If this journey brought a warm smile to your face, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel so we can continue to share these beautiful trips down memory lane together. Now, I have an important question for you to answer in the comments below. Which of these frugal habits do you remember most fondly? Or what is one retro saving trick you still use in your home today? I cannot wait to read your personal stories. Until next time, take care and keep those precious memories alive.